right away you see a very short survey on the screen, and this is so these questions will help understand whether we are on the same page today. So for all of you who are listening to us today, I will read these questions out loud. So the first question is, do you use productivity zones? So at the moment I see that so it seems to me that a part of you actually use productivity zones. So the second question is why do you use them? And as I see, we use productivity zones for both, for both reasons. The first is to optimizing inputs, and the second is to increase yield potential. And the last question is whether you use the OneSoil web or mobile applications. And as I see, most of you haven't used these applications not yet, and I hope that you'll start using it after our today's webinar. So we'll make everything possible as to let you know that it's worth trying and worth using. So let's check the answers. So at the moment we see that more secure use productivity zones. At the moment there are several people who haven't used it yet. So regarding the last questions, the results are approximately the same as I have already said. So thank you very much. So now I have, several more questions for you before we start. So it would be wonderful to know where you are joining us today. So what do you do? I mean, what do you do for a living? So, and probably I can start. At the moment, I'm in Minsk, the capital of Belarus, and the place where the office of OneSoil is located. So the weather outside is very, very hot today, and the season is in its full swing in Belarus. So what about you? Okay, so I see that someone is typing something at the moment. So, oh, wonderful. We have people from Russia. So which weather do we have in Russia? Oh, people with warm weather from Serbia, from Mexico, great. Italy, Ukraine, wonderful. Italy, there are lots of rain in June. So, but where are you from? Mm-hmm. So, lucky Canada. It's sunny and humid. I hope that it means that you're lucky, but it depends on the crops you're actually. Okay, sunny in Italy as well. So it seems to me that we have very, very, very similar weather. So probably it's good. And now I want to start. Yeah. Today, as I've already said, we'll talk about the productivity zones. So we will start with the definition of productivity zones, then we'll share why do you need to use them, why it makes sense, and we'll talk about the different methods of using productivity zones properly. In the end, we walk you through the OneSoil web application, and I will show you how to define productivity zones and how to use them for free in the application. So that's it. And now actually, I want to tell about the productivity zones itself. So productivity zones are the areas in the field with different yield history. There are the areas with the highest yield from season to season. In these areas are considered the zones of high productivity. There are also the areas of lower and medium productivity. These productivity zones could be stable and unstable. If we talk about these stable zones, we can observe the picture very, I don't know, which is much alike to the picture you see right away. So on the screen there are several four. Yeah, there are four yield maps, and all of them are very similar. Yeah, as you see, in 2014, the yield map was much alike as been made for the yield map in 2015, and the situation is the same in the next years. So what does it mean? It means that this very field has a factor of factors that limit the yield. And the influence of these very factors exceed the influence of, let's say, weather conditions or crops features. So, and the fields with stable zones, um, they are called, um, and the productive zones with the search influence factor, yes, with the inside, um, with the inner influence factor are called the productivity zones, which are stable. So as for the unstable productivity zones, their locations vary across the field from season to season. So now I want to draw your attention to these two yield maps. So especially I want you to look at these very part of the field. Sorry, at this yes, at this board. Um, So as you can see, in 2015, this sport was a part of lower and medium productivity zones. Meanwhile, in 2014, this sport was a part of high productivity zones. If you look at the bottom, you will notice that the port, this report, I mean, was a part of high productivity zones in 2015. At the moment, if we look at the opposite yield map for 2014, you will see that these sport were the part for uh, high and medium and as well lower productivity zones. What does it mean? First of all, it means that the yield on this very field is primarily affected by weather conditions or by cultivated crop features instead of internal factors. And we know that in 2014 the weather is very humid, and that's why we observed uh, the yield map of this kind. So, and that's why it changed. Yes, it actually changed in 2015. So all of it brings us to the methods which you can use to define productivity zones. There are two of them. You can do that based on harvest data or vegetation data. To be honest, the best and probably more obvious method is to use harvest data for multiple years. It's important. So what should you do? First of all, you combine yield maps for multiple years, and then you analyze them and create a map of productivity zones. As I've already said, this method is very good and it's the most obvious one, the most reliable one, but it comes with a few difficulties. Actually, the first obstacle is about recovering others' data for multiple years. And now um, I'd like to ask you, so whether you can recover others' data for several years. So if you can do that, please let us know in the comments. So on the contrary, if you can't recover others' data, or if you actually don't collect these kinds of data, also um, write it in the comments in the chat room. So I see that some of you are typing at the moment. So I hope not like this. So we have people who don't collect yield data at all. Uh, we should say that, uh, that probably this is not the best strategy. I mean, not to collect the hazard data, because it's very important to first of all analyze the field work, and as well um, it's very important to create productivity maps for the field. So I see there is a question. The question is, I have some previous yield maps. Is it what you mean? So yes, actually, I mean the yield maps for your field for multiple years. So not for 1 year, but for several years. So there is a very good question. Can you measure it any other way besides with the combine? So it's a wonderful question, and I'll answer it a bit later. So please be patient. And I see that there is one person who actually collects covers there. So well done. It's wonderful. Great. It means that you can use them for defining productivity maps, or you can use, I don't know if you don't do that manually, or you can use the second method of defining productivity zones, which I'd like to tell a bit later. Of course, this very method, I mean the method connected with collecting covers data, it has one more problem. Of course, the combined harvesters need to be calibrated correctly to get reliable data. So, and on this very slide, there is a yield map which illustrates what I mean. So, as you can see on the right, most of the strips are of green color. At the same time, the strips on the left, most of them, of course, are of red color. And it means that the combined harvesters which we are used while collecting yield, we are not calibrated. So we can't, unfortunately, we can't rely on this type of yield map. And that's a problem. So what's the work? What's the way out? What's the workaround? Um, Another way is to use vegetation data. And now I'll try to talk you how it all works. So, but first of all, I'd like to give you a very short backstory. Since 2012, we've been conducting different on-farm trials with friendly farms in Western and Eastern Europe. So we analyzed many yield maps for different fields. Yeah, I mean yield maps for multiple years, of course. And we find that there is a correlation between vegetation data at specific data stages and yield maps. And actually, this is how the OneSoil application works, and this is actually how you can do. So you should analyze vegetation maps, as I've said, at specific, it's important at specific data stages, and then I don't know, you combine them and create a map of productivity zones. So and one more time, as I've said, vegetation maps at specific growth stages or data stages correlate highly with yield maps, and that's why they could be used to define productivity zones. And to prove it right, I want to show you two maps. So these are the maps of productivity zones, but there is very little difference between them. The map on the right was created based on vegetation data, and maps on the left was created based on hazard data. And as you can see, they are much alike, and it proves that both methods work well for defining productivity zones. So probably this is yes, probably it's all. And now we will have a very short Q&A session. to answer all the questions we received before the webinar. Uh, so I will, yes, I will read the questions for you to see and to hear them, and then I'll answer them. So the first question: when using satellite data to determine productivity zones, can you exclude years that you know are not representative due to other known field-related factors? It's that, see that, and etc. So actually, if you use the OneSoil application to define productivity zones, you can exclude these years by yourself. And in the end, I will show you how to do that in the OneSoil application. So one more time, if you need, if you know that there are several years which are not representative for you, you can exclude them in the OneSoil application. So the next question. Okay. Um, mhm. So how can we take into account zones which are very productive but occasionally might be subject to excessive moisture if there are occurrences of high volume precipitation every few years? So actually, this is a very good example of the field with unstable productivity zones. And unfortunately, unfortunately, there are any means to take into account this. Why? Because uh, unfortunately, we can't forecast the weather for the next year, and um, that's why there is no any way to take it into account. So it's impossible. Okay. The third question. Can you identify zones with the soil compaction? So, unfortunately, and to be honest, right away we can't do that, but we can advise you to analyze the productivity zones for your maps and to inspect the areas with the lower productivity, and maybe you will find any kind of correlation. So if so, please let us know. It will be great to know your results. Mhm. So um, before I start the second part of our webinar, I should say that if you have any questions, please leave them in the chat room, or else we will have some more Q&A sessions, and as well we will have a very broad Q&A course to answer your questions. So we see them, and I want you to know that you are very expected to do that. Okay, so thanks a lot. Now let's talk about why we do need to use productivity zones. So actually there are many reasons, but today we'll talk about two of them. We'll talk about variable rate fertilizer application and about variable rate seeding. Um, I suggest starting with the variable rate fertilizer application. And before we start off, I want to say that today, by VRA, I mean just phosphorus and potassium fall application. Another thing I want you to draw attention to is that there are no uniform fields. And we should remember that. What does it mean for us? It means that there is very high variability in soil and in crops itself. So the soil is heterogeneous, and that's why the nutrient content in different parts of the field could be different also. And to prove it right, last year we conducted a very good experiment, and now I'd like to share its results with you. So, um, right, right away on this slide, you see two potassium distribution maps. So for the same field, actually. But there is a very, very important difference. The map on the right was created with a 5 acre sample grid, while the map on the left was created with 0.7 acres sample grid. So I want you to take it into consideration because it's very important. But now I'd like also to draw your attention to the plots, which Usevalad highlighted on the slide at the moment. So let's look at this plot. As you see, there is, as you see, the potassium content in this very plot is different. So if we look at the map on the right, we see that the content is, so as far as I understand, it means that it's lower. But at the same time, if we look at the distribution map on the left, we see that potassium content is high. So this is actually the problem. So we should understand which data what data we can and should rely on. So the situation is the same if we look at this very plot. So what does it mean for us? First of all, it means that the denser the sample is, the more accurate the data on soil nutrients is. And if we go back to these two maps, we can say that this very distribution map is more accurate. And this is map which could be used for, in any further operations which we need to do on the field. So one more conclusion which I'd like to make. If you decide to apply fertilizer, let's say based on the map, which is on the right, it will result in increasing field variability. Of course, as you see, the nutrients, sorry. Whereas, as you see, this map is not very correct, and that's correct, and that's why you can result in a very bad luck. So now let's look at one more map, distribution map. What we have done is we divided this very field into equal zones. Now I want you to pay attention to one of the zones which we highlighted. And as you can see, the potassium content within this zone is, is very, is very different. So variability is very, very high. If you look at phosphorus distribution maps, and if you pay attention to one zone on this field, you will see that there is also a very high variability of phosphorus. So the first conclusion is, which is probably obvious, that there is high variability in phosphorus and potassium in moist field plots. And if you decide to apply fertilizer using zone sampling, as we have done in this very example, you will end up with the same results as if you were used a single fertilizer rate. What is the reason? The reason is that there is very high variability in nutrients in moist field plots. So now I have for you even more maps. So there are phosphorus, potassium distribution maps, and yield map. So as you can see, all these maps are very different, and there are not so many correlation between them. So let's pay attention to this very plot. As you can see, if you look at the yield map, this is a plot. Uh, this is a plot with very high productivity, with very high yield. I mean, um, at the same time, we see that in this very plot there is different phosphorus and potassium content. So in some parts it's very low, in some parts it's very high, but nevertheless we see that within this plot the yield is very high. So it means that phosphorus and potassium are not related to yield in this very plot. The same situation could be observed if you look at this very plot at the bottom. So you can see that that this plot could be divided into equal parts with the lower yield and with high yield. At the same time, we see that phosphorus and potassium content is the same there. So what does it tell me? It means that the nutrient content might not be a limiting factor on the field. And to find this limiting factor, you should analyze productivity yield and you should analyze, I don't know, your own experience probably. Or backed on, backed by our own experience and based on our own on-field trials, we can say that more that mostly soil moisture, soil texture, humus content, and soil acidity are those factors which influence the yield, but not the nutrient content, as I've said. So the question is how to find this very limiting factor and how to apply fertilizer. So our solution is to use the productivity zones. First, as I've said, they reflect most of the limiting factor which I've mentioned. The influence of most of the limiting factors. So our concept is to increase the rate in the high productivity plots and decrease it in the areas of lower productivity. Based on the field trials which we had last year, we can say that if you use variable rate fertilizer application, you can end up with yield increased by approximately 11%. It seems to us that it's a very good, I don't know, it's a very good profit. So that's all for the second part of our webinar. And now we have one more Q&A session. So I hope that my team will help me to choose some questions to answer right away. So the first question, you see it on the screen, but I will read it out loud. Can you achieve enough precision about field borders and obstacles to enable the array, or should users have borders created with the vehicle on the ground? What is level of accuracy? So first of all, I should say that if you have a file with borders delineated by yourself or with the vehicle on the ground, as you mentioned, we encourage you to use this very file to define productivity zones. So you can upload this file into OneSoil web application, and we will calculate the most accurate productivity zones. So this method is actually the best one. What about the level of accuracy? I mean the accuracy of field delineation, which we have. This is, if I'm not, if I'm not mistaken, our algorithms detect field boundaries with from 2 to 5 meter accuracy. So um, we use, as you know, 10-meter resolution Sentinel-2 imagers, but the accuracy is approximately from 2 to 5 meters. How does it possible? So we can do this thanks to our accurate ground truth data, and we can do that with a pure scientific tricks. So if you're curious enough, if you're very interested in it, please write us to the hello at onesoil.com, and we will tell you more details about these these very data science magic. So, but it's very, very specific. Yeah. Another question: how OneSoil can help Indian farmers? So we are smallholder farmers, and many and possibilities of collaborating with OneSoil. We can provide farmer data. So as far as I understand, you have any kind of farmer data. So if you have any data with your own border, with the borders of the fields, you can, as I've said in the answer to the first question, you can upload the file with field borders to the OneSoil web application, and we will calculate the NDI index for you, and we will help you to your. So we will not help, but we will do that. Actually, we will define productivity maps for your fields. Um, and so at the moment, these are the only options which are, I don't know, which are accessible for our collaboration. Okay, and one more question for this Q&A session. Could we update the maps using drone images? So unfortunately, no, there is no such kind of functionality in the OneSoil web or mobile web applications. So that's it. So thanks, Laura. Um, and one more. So once again, I want to remind you that we'll have a Q&A session in the end. So please write the questions you have in the chat room, so we see your questions. So, and I see that there are many of them at the moment. So thanks a lot. It's great to know that this topic is of interest to them. So now let's talk about variable rate seeding. As I've said in the previous part, we at OneSoil suggest using the productivity zones for variable rate seeding. So why? Because productivity zones reflect the impact of limiting factors, um, which I don't know, which could arise, and that's why you can, and that's why yes, you can treat them. I mean, productivity zones as a litmus test. So if you combine field variability with knowledge of optimal seeding rates, you can calculate variable rates for seeding, and in most of the cases, you can increase yield. Last year, we conducted several experiments, not several, but hundreds, actually, yes, hundreds experiments with different crops. So we are testing variable rate seeding of corn, sunflower, and soybean. And now I'd like to tell you about the results of these experiments. So the first group of experiments I'd like to mention is the experiment with corn hybrids. So last year, we conducted many field trials with different corn hybrids, and we came to a conclusion that response to variable rate seeding depends on corn hybrid. What does it mean for you? First of all, it means that if you want to try variable rate seeding. And if you want to put it to work for your farm, for your profits, you should take into account the corn hybrids you choose. Of course, none of them react positively to variable rate seeding. So the second group of experiments, which I'd like to talk about today, is the experiments with the sunflower. So last year we had approximately 15 experiments with different sunflower hybrids. As well, we tried a very wide range of seeding rate. And unfortunately, we can see right now that sunflower is a very good choice for variable rate seeding. At the same time, we can see that germination rate of sunflower drops down when we increase seeding rate. And we proved this very um, result, right? With many experiments. So if you're probably you have different results, so please let us know. It would be very interesting to know whether the gem, so how worth, so which experience you had with sunflower, and whether you could increase yield and increase germination rate as well. But our result is that it drops down. So the second experiment is a special one. Of course, we conducted it without special equipment. As you know, variable rate seeding requires special equipment, and this very equipment is not very cheap. On the contrary, it's very expensive, and there are many farmers who are very I don't know, who are very eager to know whether they could get a return on their investment before they buy this very equipment. And that's why we decided to conduct an experiment without special equipment. So we tested corn on the most homogeneous floors on the field, and we just worked. It's worked out with manually adjustable seeding rate. We are able to increase yield. What does it mean? So first of all, it means that the farmer with whom we worked and with whom we conducted this very experiment can, and we hope that he will buy uh, special equipment and will get a good return on his investments. So the last and not the least experiment I'd like to shed light on today is the experiment with the soybean. Unfortunately, we are not ready to give you any recommendations regarding soybean. Whereas last year we had just one field where we conducted the experiments with the soybean. So we now have not enough data to give you any overarching recommendations. But in this very experiment, we are able to increase yield. So it seems to me that obviously all of these results bring us to the very logical and good question: how do we conduct on-farm trials, and what about other crops? So I will start with the second part of this question, and I want to say that at the moment we are conducting several experiments with wheat, with oats, with different other crops, and as far as we have the results of all of these experiments, we will share them with you in our blog. So if you haven't subscribed to our newsletters yet, so do that right after the webinar. So what about the first part of this question, the methodology of our on-farm trials? So actually, it consists of approximately, yes, approximately 5 steps. So the first step is analysis of field variability. After that, we define productivity zones. So we define the zones in the OneSoil web application, and in the end, I will show you how to do that. So the second step is to determine and eliminate, if it's possible, of course, a limiting factor. So the third step is to define treatments, positive and negative control, and create a prescription map. So um, also we create prescription maps using the OneSoil web application. So one more step is to collect field data if it's important in the experiment, but more so it's very important. And in the end, we analyze field maps. So that's it. It seems to me that it's I don't know, it's not so easy, but it's not complicated as well. It's something in between, so you can replicate the replicate. I don't know, this scheme which we use to conduct on-farm trials. So if you do have any questions regarding the on-farm trials, so first of all, you need to write a new article which we published in our blog, and secondly, you can write to hello@onesoil.com, and we will help you to answer all your questions and actually to do a proper field experiment. It's completely free. So now let's talk about, probably, I hope so, talk about the most interesting part of the webinar, about the free methods which allows you to define productivity zones and to use them for variable rate seeding and variable rate fertilizer application. So I hope soon you'll get a link to our web application. So I'd like to advise you to save this link or to bookmark it. Or right away, I will show you the inner interface of our web application, and will tell you how it all works after you sign up. So after you sign up in the application, in the web application, you can do that with your with Gmail, probably, yes, and with your social media accounts. So after you do that, you will see a very big map with millions, I don't know, of fields already delineated. So the only thing you need to do right now is to choose your own field on the map and save it. So very easy. Then you need to go to the fertilizer tab. There, I suggest you to click on the phosphorus and potassium tab, of course. Here you can choose the plant crop you're going to grow the next season as well. We will ask you to enter the harvest data for the previous years. It's very important for us to define productivity maps for you in a more accurate way. So, by the way, if you know that any of the previous years was not representative due to different factors, you can exclude this year um, from defining productivity zones, not to I don't know, not to spoil the map of productivity zones, probably. So how to do that? Just click on this drop-down menu and choose exclude. So very easy. Then please choose the Android computer type you use and download the file. So now let's look how it all works in the if you want to create a prescription map for variable rate seeding. Honestly, the process is the same, almost the same. So first of all, you need to choose what you're gonna sow the next season. Then you need to enter your harvest data from all the years. After that, please enter setting rates, which will be applied to different productivity zones. So then please choose the onboard computer you have, download the field, and that's it. After that, you need to upload the file into your onboard computer and you can start working. So this is how the Mergic works, and this is how the Mergic looks like once your web application. So, and a very short note to remind you, all of it is free of charge. So, and now, mm, and now I hope so. Okay, sorry, sorry. Yes, my team is helping me to prepare for the Q&A session uh, as I see there are many questions. Okay, so um, the first question is what kind of observation satellite data you use, optical or SAR? So currently we use only data from the Sentinel-2 satellite. It provides optical data, and we consider using SAR. It's radar. Yes, it's a sort of radar data for some tasks. So our data scientists team at the moment is exploring the possibilities of such data. So um, the next question. So what we'll choose right now? Okay. So IO productivity maps give reality for absolute field values. Yes, so actually we use relative values. So in other words, we don't know how many turns have been collected for every part of the field, but we know how productive this part was, and we showed it in percent compared with the whole field. So this is how it works. So and probably we have a special article in our blog devoted to this very aspect. So please um, head over to our blog for I don't know for some more details. But yes, currently uh, we use it and show you reality field values. So now we are choosing the next question. So how long select display productive zones for every year or just for selecting them? Okay, so by default, you see productivity zones for every year starting from 2016. So if you want, you can select only certain yes. But you should remember that in such case, we will define productivity zones for the previous year. So for instance, um, if you selected the year 2019, we will calculate the zones for the year 2018. So we will collect the productivity zones for the previous year. So you should take it into account. So, are there any questions? Mm-hmm. Mm, so now I'm just looking through all the questions you wrote to understand which one to choose to answer. So it seems to me that so, so we have no kind of questions here. Oh, someone is typing. So it seems to me that we will see one more question at the moment. So, by the way, while we're waiting you to write your questions, I want to say that all the materials of our webinar, I mean uh, the slides, the presentation, the links to the articles I've mentioned today, and for sure the video of our today's webinar, you will receive straight to your inbox. So probably on Monday or Tuesday, we will send you a letter with kind of wrap up for today's webinar and with all the additional materials. Mhm. Okay, so are you? We have one more question. So I see that Maria asked us whether we have yield maps taking into account when creating prescriptions. So actually, at the moment, no. So we can't use your data. I mean, the data you're entered into the web application, but at the moment, and as I've said, at the moment we are creating prescriptions based on the vegetation data, but now we are working on um, increasing the accuracy of our algorithms and on different ways of using yield data also to create prescriptions. So subscribe to our newsletters um, to know about all new features and all the updates we have them. So I feel that I feel right now that I'm not a very good marketer. So if you think so, also let me know, please, in the chat room. I see that someone is typing also right now. So, the, so by the way, for all of you who haven't used our applications yet, we will also send you the links to the applications. Right, we have a tour. Not right. We can give you access to the web application and to the mobile one. So if you have Android or iOS, you can use also our application right in the field. So it helps very good in scouting. Yes, there are also many features such as notes, weather forecast. Um, NDVI maps also. So if you need such kind of tool, so if you feel that it can help you, go to the Play Market or to the App Store and download it. It's also free. Mhm. So I see that we have one more question. Um, So the question is, can we download satellite statistic data from our fields? So no, unfortunately you can't download it from the app. But as I've said, you can um, download the prescription maps which are built based on this very satellite data. So it seems to me that we have uh, that we that we have some minutes to answer one more question. If you do have any questions, so write something in the chat room. Um, and I see that someone is typing at the moment. So and before we I don't know before we get this very question, I want to say also that after we finish the webinar, you will see you will see a window, I don't know, a very short form, well, where you will be asked to give us some kind of feedback about today's webinar. So it would be very great to know whether you liked it, how it was for you, whether it was interesting, useful for you. So, of course, this is the very first webinar in English. Sorry. So you see that I don't know, that I'm not so confident today. Of course, the first time is also not so easy. Um, it would be great to be, yes, but uh, we are also improving all our webinars, and actually right now we are uh, working on different I don't know, materials which will help you to solve your problems and to improve your farming experience, farm management. Mhm. So I see that there are two more questions. Yes. The first question. Um, so, do you take the productivity data in the time of the harvest based on crop shape, or is it done in some other way? So, actually, the only thing I can do is to ask you clarify your question first. I'm not sure that we understand it in the right way. So please clarify it because it's not very clear what you mean. At this time, we can answer one more question. So about the availability of the uh, NDI index which provide. Oh yes, as I said already. So yes, we provide NDI index. So as I see the previous question, it will be clarified quite soon. So we are waiting for you. Please let us know what you mean. So, so as far as as far as I understand, right away, okay, yeah, the second part. So, um, I want to remind everyone that now we are trying to answer the question, which sounds like this: do you take the productivity data in the time of the harvest based on crop height, or it's done in some other way? So, and what does it mean? When you put my field in the app, I can see that you are measuring vegetation, and it's shown on the app. I'd like um, I'd like to know how that correlates with your metrics for measuring productivity. Okay, so uh, it seems to me, and yes, Sarah writes me that this is not um, this is not a very, I don't know, easy question and easy to go, and it requires a bit of clarification, a bit of details from our R&D team, and we will answer your questions later in a written form, and so it would be great, probably if you were, as I know you left your so your email, we will write you with the very comprehensive answer. So, um, so thanks for your questions. It's great to know that you are very curious of the details which need the help of our R&D team. So, but all in all, I don't know, for a short answer, probably, I should say that the usual correlation is more than 80%, but it depends on crops. So, by the way, we will talk to our R&D team, and as I said, we will let you know. Uh, we will let you know. So it's for all of you who is listening to us today. The the person who asked this question said that he's using our app for a year, and it's an honor for us to know that you are still using our app and to know that it helps you to do your work properly. So thanks the Lord. Um, thanks the Lord. Yeah, and as I said, now it would be great if you could fill in the form after the webinar. So if there are any other topics which you are of interest, which you'd like us to talk more about, also please um, let us know in this form. So we will prepare more webinars to tell you about the things you are really interested and curious about. So thanks a lot. Have a good, have a great, I don't know, evening or day ahead, and also have good build maps which you can rely on to build productivity maps. And I wish you a high productivity also in the maps and also in your daily work. So thanks a lot. Thanks for your participation, for your attention. So goodbye.